As the Minister of Advanced Education.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my privilege and honour to stand and speak with respect to the budget that we tabled last week. As is customary, I want to start with a couple of opening comments. The first is, Mr. Speaker, I'm really grateful that I have this job. I think I have one of the best jobs in government, and certainly one of the best jobs out there. I get to work in advanced education every day. I get to work with Innovation Saskatchewan and the status of women, and a really strong team, and I feel very privileged to have that opportunity, Mr. Speaker. I also want to say a few words. A lot of the public sees us on the outside, but they don't see a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes, Mr. Speaker, to help us be successful or to help us correct mistakes when they've happened. And I want to take a minute to talk about the unsung heroes behind us and beside us, especially when things go wrong either in our private lives or publicly. So with that in mind, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my kids, Cayman and Montana, who have always been great champions of mine, as I am of them. We've certainly had some rough years with being teenagers, but on the whole, I think we have a very strong foundation, and I feel really proud of the young people that they're becoming, Mr. Speaker, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. Obviously, my parents, it's been spoken about by many members of this House before, but for those of us, especially with families, my parents have played a really critical role and enabled me to keep all the balls in the air, Mr. Speaker, and so I'm grateful very much to my parents as well for helping me do that, and just for instilling in me a couple of values that I think are really important. One, the value of hard work, of honesty, of loyalty, and care for others. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the team that I have here in the building, and I want to give a shout out to my ministry team up in the office. Tessa, Dawn, Michelle, Dan, and Ashley, who just do a tremendous job keeping me organized and are really the best supportive team that anyone could ever ask for. My CA, Wendy, who keeps me in the loop about things that are coming into our constituency office and makes sure that I'm abreast of everything that is going on, and that people who come into my office feel like they were heard and that they will get a response and that we will handle the things that we need to be handled. I also want to thank, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues. I have so many incredible, supportive colleagues, and of course a great leader in Premier Scott Moe, and I'm really grateful every day to be part of a team of people that are professionals, that are good at what they do, and that raise the bar every single day. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank leaders in the community and good friends. I've been really blessed to have a number of good friends that I would call friends in the community who are leaders in their various capacities, and just good people who have always supported me and make my life great and push me to be better every single day, I think, Mr. Speaker, which is really important. When times are good, everybody's great, but when times are hard, the power of a kind word or text really means a lot. And I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity over the last little while to have a lot of friends reach out on a number of fronts, and I just want to thank them for that. Mr. Speaker, we've invested in mental health in this budget, but I think we need to remember that we all play a role in looking after each other's mental health in this place as well. I think we have to do more than wear pink on anti-bullying days and broadcast slogans. I appreciate a really thoughtful and sharp political critique. I'm a partisan after all, and hope I'll be providing one here in moments, but I think we can still treat each other with the respect and dignity we each deserve and honor the office of parliamentarian that we are all called to play. And Mr. Speaker, that doesn't cost us a thing. So in terms of the budget, Mr. Speaker, the issue at hand, it's been said many times, I think, and it will be said many more, but 3 years ago, we committed to a 3-year plan to get back to balance. And we've delivered on that plan, Mr. Speaker. But what I don't think has been said enough was that this commitment was made by our former Premier and then duly accomplished by both the former and the current Premier. And I think it is this consistency and steadfastness in achieving our collective obligation that has made a leadership transition seamless for our government. In fact, I would argue that we are stronger as a team than we have ever been before. And for that, I want to thank both former Premier Brad Wall and Premier Scott Moe for the conviction to achieve.
I'd like to remind the member that members are to be referred to by either their constituency or the position that they hold. And I know members receive some assistance from staff who perhaps write some of the things for them. Yes. So I would just like to remind members of how they are to refer to one another. I recognize the minister.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. I know better than that, and I somehow missed that. I apologize. Kick me out. Jeez. Good friends. That's good friends. I want to thank them for their conviction, Mr. Speaker, to achieve a goal that sometimes really required some difficult choices, and I think that is real leadership, Mr. Speaker. Over the last 2 years, we've put hundreds of thousands of kilometres on engaging with Saskatchewan people. I've done that, and certainly the Premier has done many, many more than that, and so have many of my colleagues. This budget responds to the things we have heard about most across town halls, forums, bear pits, and business roundtables. It responds to the things we have heard from most in our conversations over coffee, in our constituency offices, in meetings with stakeholders, and around our own family supper tables. We cannot do everything, spend on everything, and balance our budget. Like so many households out there, when the budget is stretched, we make choices about where to spend based on where our greatest needs are. And that, quite frankly, is what good, hardworking folks all over this province have been telling us to do. So, what did citizens tell us the greatest needs were? Mental health and addiction supports. This budget has record investments in health, with a special focus on mental health and addictions. In total, $349.4 million has been directed into mental health care initiatives through the Ministry of Health, just bringing us under the goal of 7%. On family farms, on reserves, in workplaces, and around our own dinner tables, we have all heard first-hand accounts of people struggling with mental illness or addictions. Mr. Speaker, mental health doesn't discriminate. It affects wealthy and poor, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, young and old, male or female, rural or urban. The magnitude of this issue is overwhelming, really. It is no longer a matter of if we know someone, it's a matter of how many. As a government, I am very, very proud of our investment into the Saskatchewan Hospital, North Battleford. That facility is critically important because it not only speaks to the care of those with our most intensive needs, it also speaks to our understanding that sometimes crime is a byproduct of mental illness. We will never, as a government, fully address all of the mental health and addictions issues across the province. For that, we truly need a village, Mr. Speaker, but I'm very proud that our government is doing its part. Intersection safety. In the wake of the Humboldt Broncos tragedy, we also heard a lot about truck driver training and intersection safety. I am very proud of the work that my colleague Minister Carr has done to work with the federal government. I did it again. I need to scratch it. I'm so sorry. It's a rough week and it's only Tuesday, Mr. Speaker. It's a rough week, Mr. Speaker, and it's only Tuesday. To work with the federal government on mandatory truck driver training, mandatory training for truck drivers. I'm also very proud of our efforts to continue twinning highways, the completion of the Regina bypass, and our multi-year strategy on enhanced intersection safety, Mr. Speaker. These are critical investments in health, but also in the economy of the province, and the safety, and obviously also recreation. Wireless coverage. Our agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker, is one of the biggest drivers of innovation in this province, whether we're talking about genomic research or the application of artificial intelligence to create autonomous tractors through DOT technology. Modern farm equipment is increasingly capable of enabling precision agricultural practices, from seeding to spraying to harvesting. which enables our producers to control costs, increase yields, and curb emissions. But continued advancement in this sector, as well as others, requires digital infrastructure. And that's why I'm very proud of the $321 million investment SaskTel is making to upgrade wireless and wireline networks across the province, as well as the addition of 41 new cellular sites. This latter investment is part of a 2-year initiative to bring 100 new sites to small communities in the province by 2020. In terms of domestic violence and interpersonal abuse, Mr. Speaker, we have added capacity to the Status of Women Office to coordinate the work on the Domestic Violence Death Review recommendations and the Interministerial Committee. And I'm very proud that there are other initiatives that are coming along. We have also been the first province in Canada to institute Clare's Law, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very proud of the work that is being done on this file. We know that there is more work to do, and of course it is something that we will continue to work on. In my own constituency of Regina University, we've heard from parents of young children with autism who are struggling to make sure that their kids have all the supports they need to get the best possible start in life. These conversations have happened on the doorsteps in my own constituency. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to supports for children on the spectrum, and it can be very expensive. And that's why I am very proud of the increase in individualized funding for children with autism in this budget, Mr. Speaker. As a Regina MLA, I also heard a lot about St. Pius School, not only from the Regina Separate School Board, but also from concerned parents and teachers about the state of that facility. Mr. Speaker, we've committed to a consolidation and build for Argyle and St. Pius schools in this budget as part of our government's education capital plans, Mr. Speaker, which is coincidentally located right in Regina Lakeview constituency of the education critic. These are the issues we have heard about the most, Mr. Speaker, as we have traveled across the province, and certainly that I have heard personally the most as I have knocked on doors or met with folks in my constituency and in this city. Most of them, as you can see, are investments in people and in what some might call matters of the heart. And it is precisely those targeted investments into areas where we need them the most, while still delivering on a balanced budget, that makes this the right balance. But we cannot afford any of these things, Mr. Speaker, if we don't grow the economy. And on this, we have the single greatest contrast between the members opposite and our government, Mr. Speaker. First of all, we recognize the magnitude of the headwinds, the federal imposition of the carbon tax, the competitiveness challenges associated with U.S. tariffs, the latest challenges around canola exports, federal regulations that serve as a constantly moving goalpost on building pipelines, Bill C-69, and the list goes on and on. We export 70% of what we make in this province, and I know that people in Saskatchewan trust our Premier and our government not only to fully comprehend the magnitude of these challenges, they also trust that we will marshal all of our abilities to meet those challenges head on. That's why our Premier and relevant ministers have been aggressively building relationships with our largest trading partners, not just at national levels, Mr. Speaker, but also at subnational levels. And that is why we have been using our voice to amplify important conversations around C-69 or canola exports or pipelines or the carbon tax. Saskatchewan people trust that we don't just talk about these things or make passing reference to them. They don't hear us say we support the energy industry while we speak out at rallies against it. We fight on behalf of the people of this province, and that we will stand shoulder to shoulder with families and communities whose livelihoods and industries are at stake. Saskatchewan people trust us to do that, and we will. Because standing up for Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker, is standing up for our economy. And when we stand up for our economy and seek solutions to problems outside of our control by building relationships or seeking alternatives, we also Stand up for families with kids with autism who will be getting additional supports. We also stand up then for families at St. Pius School, and we also then stand up for the hundreds and thousands of people who are struggling with mental health and addictions. Nothing, I repeat, nothing about that is off balance, Mr. Speaker. What is off balance is members' opposite readiness to govern, Mr. Speaker. And this starts with a basic and authentic understanding of the headwinds I talked about, but also several others. One of the ways we have been able to keep our economy going and create employment, Mr. Speaker, is through record investments in infrastructure projects over our time in government. Those infrastructure projects have benefited many companies and our citizens with improved safety on highways, more efficient transportation routes for our exported goods, and better care for children, seniors, and the most vulnerable. And that list is long, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure some of my colleagues will go through it, but it ranges from long-term care beds to new schools, to the Children's Hospital, the Moose Jaw Hospital, the Victoria Hospital in Prince Albert, the Regina Bypass, and so on and so on. And when businesses and investors see these projects going on, they feel confident about investing in Saskatchewan, not only because we have low and competitive personal and corporate income taxes, Mr. Speaker, but because they trust that our Premier and our government has our finger on the pulse of the people and the businesses in this economy, Mr. Speaker. We see this in the approval ratings of the Premier, 2 of them now, which show him as a top in the country. We see this in the approximately $2.5 billion in building permits a year since we have formed government, Mr. Speaker. We see this in our population numbers. People are moving back home. 9 out of 10 of our graduates are staying here. Almost 70,000 of them have taken advantage of the graduate retention program. And as the Minister for Immigration and Career Training has often noted in this Assembly, we have a highly successful Saskatchewan immigrant nominee program here. And that is why our allocation keeps going up from 3,400 in 2009 to 5,750 in 2018. And do you know, Mr. Speaker, who the Conference Board of Canada ranked second in terms of newcomer intake as a share of its population among the provinces? Saskatchewan. That's right, Mr. Speaker, Saskatchewan. I realize that these are inconvenient truths for the ugly narrative trying to be shaped by members opposite, Mr. Speaker, but they are truths and they are facts. Just under 1.2 million people believe in Saskatchewan, believe that our best days are ahead of us, and we agree. I'm proud that we delivered this budget and invested in the things we heard mattered most while still upholding our commitment to balance. But I'm really even more excited about what lies ahead. We have a new growth plan to work on, and it will be a critical opportunity for us to share our vision for the future with the people of this province. We are seeing the first technology commercial spin-off company from the Canadian Light Source and the Canadian Isotopes Innovation Corporation. Medical isotopes, Mr. Speaker, have played a very important role in reducing wait times for medical diagnostics and situates the U of S as a leader in medical physics and accelerator technology. This is also being furthered by their partnership with the Fedoric Centre, whose dedicated hot cells will provide much needed dedicated space. I am really excited and supportive of this work. The University of Regina is a leader in mental health and wellness research, particularly around PTSD, which we will need to draw upon as we look to continue to expand our impact in mental health and addictions work. The U of R also hosts not 1, but 2 research chairs in artificial intelligence, one of whom is working on constructing intelligent systems to monitor and control carbon capture and storage. We have incubators and accelerators in both Regina and Saskatoon, helping to build our entrepreneurial ecosystem, both of which are aided by thriving undergraduate and graduate business programs, and aided yet again by relationships with Innovation Place. Our investments in collabs, Mr. Speaker, at last count, resulted in incubation and acceleration of 64 startups and leveraged in millions of dollars in small business investment. The Regina scene, Mr. Speaker, is gaining momentum under the Cultivator Accelerator. Just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, I attended a packed house of investors and companies in the ag biotech space to connect with with investors in this province, and also to network with and see the opportunities leveraged in the protein supercluster, which will be located right here in Saskatchewan. We're going to take advantage and amplify those opportunities, Mr. Speaker. Our government has made conscious policy efforts to help build this momentum by offering the most aggressive angel investment tax credit in this country. At last count, 68 tax credits have been issued to help boost 12 different companies. And we continue to push with the help of SAS Tech to make sure our young people learn the skills of the future by including coding and robotics in the K-12 curriculum. Innovation Saskatchewan has also done coding and robotics on First Nations Reserve, and we have hackathons and Women in Tech events being supported in all of our key centres around the province to make sure that people are not left out of the digital revolution. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty excited about these developments, and I felt the buzz at last week's packed Audacity event here in Regina. The room was absolutely full of young, energetic entrepreneurs mixing with the more seasoned ones, but all exuded optimism and passion about the art of the possible right here in our province. I share that optimism, Mr. Speaker, and believe in the art of the possible, and I think all of us on this side of the Assembly do. And this budget, which is the right balance for Saskatchewan, will help us get there. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I will not be supporting the amendment, and I am very, very proud to support the budget delivered by our esteemed Finance Minister. Thank you so much.